Allende will present this morning's opening sentences.
Opening sentences come from two pieces of childhood wisdom. Arlene Feynman, wife of 20th century physicist Richard Feynman, said, "What do you care what other people think?" And Miss Valerie Frizzle from the Magic School Bus said, "Take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. Wahoo!"
Angela will present this morning's reading.
A reading from the Muslim poet Jalaluddin Rumi. There are two kinds of intelligence. One you learn as a child in school memorizes facts and concepts from books and from what the teacher says, collecting information in math, reading, or science. With such intelligence, you rise in the world. You get ranked ahead or behind others in regard to your competence in retaining information. You stroll with this intelligence in and out of fields of knowledge, putting more pen and ink marks in your notebooks. There is, however, another kind of notebook, one already completed and preserved inside you, a spring of water overflowing any container that can hold it. It is a freshness in the center of the chest. This other intelligence does not turn yellow or crumble up like paper. It's fluid, and it doesn't move from outside to inside by writing with pencil and ink. This second knowing is a fountain of wisdom from within you, moving out. Here ends the reading.
This morning we begin our series of senior speakers, and here to introduce our first senior speaker is Dan Ackerman.
The only class I ever had with Danny Ben David was Mr. Tobin's Latin class last year. Neither of us was what you'd call terrific at Latin, but we both took a great liking to the great poet Catullus, and we still reference his works almost a year later. Catullus is famous for his vicious invectives, but when Danny asked me to introduce him, I was inspired by some of the poet's equally brilliant accolades to compose a poem myself for this occasion. Like most of my poetry, it starts out seeming like a good idea and then pretty rapidly deteriorates. But it's a Catullus-length poem, so bear with me. Allow me now to introduce, in a style befitting Dr. Seuss, a man with so many merits to him, I can't help but leave some unmentioned and loose. In a world confused by color days, by an hour-long tiger web loading phase, and weathermen who think climate change is caused by pixies and cosmic rays, he makes us a calendar without being paid. He plays IT for every teacher and grade, and always is ready with his well-practiced proof that global warming actually is man-made. He's deeply in love with truth and art, with every source of discourse acquainted. Plus, he's just got the biggest heart. Please help me welcome Danny Ben David.
All right. Thanks, Dan, I think. Last March, I attended the birthday party of then Trinity senior Maya Kagan. The theme was a scavenger hunt, which left me wondering how Maya intended to keep a bunch of high schoolers entertained all day looking for random trinkets or something. However, Maya was and still is quite awesome, so I figured I'd head to the Upper East Side and celebrate her birthday with her. I wasn't disappointed. Once I got to Maya's house that fateful Saturday morning, I was promptly shuffled in the door, told to form or join a group, and handed a 5-page numbered list. She told us that each item on the list was worth a certain number of points, and we were going to spend the day taking pictures of as many of the items as possible. She then shooed us right back out the door and onto the streets of Manhattan. As I looked over the list, I realized that none of us would be in our comfort zones for long. Within the first hour, my group had licked lampposts, proposed to strangers, entered parking garages asking for an hourly rate while on piggyback, sampled free chocolate from a gourmet store, and even asked and received an egg from a kind elderly woman in an East Side townhouse. Sure, none of this was normal behavior per se, but as we ran through Central Park, yelling while trying to find a guy named Steve, that's pictured in circle is Steve Anderson, I realized two things. One, this was ridiculous, and two, that was entirely okay. My group's superior abilities in the fine arts of carousel riding and stranger hugging managed to win us the grand prize, a huge box of Pocky Sticks. In the afternoon, we all met up again at a karaoke place and began to sing horribly to various ABBA songs while we basked in the awesome of the day. So launching right into it, why was that awesome? What was it about Maya's party that was so fun? It's that word awesome, which is crucial here. While there have always been trending words to describe how sick, rad, or neat something is, awesome isn't just a word for something cool. It's kind of come to encapsulate a kind of philosophy, or forgive me, philosophy. Awesome stands out as the blend of three very important ideas: originality, confidence, and self-deprecation. While any of these ideas are important on their own, awesome things require a unique twist, a firm resolve and commitment, and a sense of not taking yourself too seriously. Otherwise, you end up with something which is distinctly short of being awesome. But how do each of these ideas work together to generate awesome things? Take Maya's party, for example. First off, it was an original idea which was, again, completely ridiculous. Awesome requires originality, that you be yourself. Heck, you don't even have to have a completely unique idea. Go ahead and dress like a pirate for all I care. It's been done before. No one around you is doing it, but you're making your actions locally original. While you're busy having fun being original, your main obstacle to being awesome is learning how to deal with the people around you who are quick to judge. So how do you face those who want to criticize you for stepping outside your comfort zone and social norm? Internally, you need confidence, a kind of strength of will, which requires a commitment to being awesome. Ask any theater geek. If the actors and crew on a show aren't fully dedicated to the cause, the show just simply won't be as vibrant. The same idea applies to being awesome. If you're not fully committed, then you won't hold the same confidence in what you're doing, and you're not going to come off as vibrantly as you could have. Although it won't appear as though you've escaped the full critiques of those around you. Important note, temper the confidence with humility. You can't only have confidence. You'll lose sight of what you're doing and come off as arrogant instead of awesome. Okay, so what's this humility aspect? Where does that fit in? The humility comes in the form of the second tenet of awesomeness, self-deprecation. You need to publicly recognize that what you're doing is ridiculous. I never said that running through Central Park and Times Square on a scavenger hunt wasn't ridiculous. It was completely ridiculous, and you have to realize that. If what you're doing isn't ridiculous to you, then you won't be able to laugh off other people's judgment. Combining the elements of confidence and self-deprecation together, you end up with this balance between your resolve to be yourself in the face of criticism and your acknowledgement of your own silliness. Over the past few years, I've begun to dedicate myself to, as I call it, the pursuit of awesomeness. The pursuit means not being able to afraid to try something new or seem a little or more than a little crazy if it means I can walk out of it all with a smile saying, I can't believe I just did that. For example, some of you may recall my various attempts through the year to, shall we say, liven up the irregular fire drills. Disclaimer, please note that I do, in fact, understand the principles behind fire drills, and they are important, so I'm not trying to make a mockery, I'm simply trying to lighten the mood. For those of you whose last names begin with a letter after, say, E, I've been cited in line appearing with everything from bowling balls to saxophones. Once you get past the judging looks of those who seem to wish you were locked up somewhere instead of playing the Mario Brothers theme song on the tenor saxophone in a fire drill line, the sensation of doing something just for the heck of it is a liberating one. But Danny, I hear you cry, how do we just start shaking off the criticism? Thankfully, some clever folks over at Improv Everywhere have figured out how to help this. Improv Everywhere is a comedy group which, in my own words, helps make people more awesome. I'm sure most of you have heard of them. Basically, what they do is they go around New York City and other cities around the world and perform missions, or what most people would call pranks or stunts. They get large groups of people to pull off organized events, whether it's hundreds of people freezing in place simultaneously in Grand Central, or convincing thousands of people to forget their pants at home on the annual No Pants subway ride for the past 10 Januaries in a row. It was 32 degrees that day, the day that picture was taken. Brave soul. My first experience with Improv Everywhere was actually only last October. I had heard of them before. This was my first time I felt ready to take part in their events. I decided to take part in the 7th grade MP3 experiment. For the MP3 experiments, Improv Everywhere asks participants to download a certain MP3 file, it's about an hour long, and meet up with earbuds and a few supplies at a specific time and location somewhere in the city. In our case, we crowded into a 4-block radius in Midtown, and at exactly 6 p.m., everyone presses play on their various iPods or Zunes. The MP3 contained an hour-long monologue by our omniscient narrator, Mark, informing you that we would be throwing a surprise party for his brother Steve later in the hour. Along the way, Mark decided that the group would be having a little bit of fun in the local retail shops and on the way to Bryant Park, the location for the party. While everyone with headphones was silent with their fellow group members, an uninformed outsider would witness a mass of people seeming to suddenly and simultaneously be compelled by an invisible force to cheer and slow dance with clothes racks. After watching senior citizens lovingly waltz through with skinny jeans from the Gap, I can tell you that the experience Improv Everywhere provides is one that raised my consciousness. Everyone around you is being as ridiculous as you are, so the fear of judgment evaporates, and the event becomes that much more awesome as confidence rises and fun is had by all. This is Brian Park from a building nearby. The man in the center there is Steve. That must be terrifying. As the event concluded with a toilet paper mummy dance party, I thought about how it was unlikely that any member of this crowd would recreate the day's events on his or her own. The awesomeness of the MP3 experiment grew out of the dedication and spirit of the group as a whole, as opposed to any individual's awesomeness in particular. This would seem to contradict the role of individuality in the definition of awesome. Isn't acting in unison in a large group the opposite of what we're trying to do here? I mean, technically sure, but groups like Improv Everywhere are composed of volunteers who are working together towards a common awesome, which exposes each participant to the joys of being more awesome.